Well, what's about to happen on the public square today, I don't think has happened quite this way before, but we'll get to that in a moment. I'm Wayne Shepherd with Dave Zanotti, and a guest is going to join us. The whole team will join us a bit later, Dave.
Michael DelGiorno has joined us, Wayne, and this is a story that we have been waiting to tell for a couple of years because there's something happening in the country that is very exciting, and we are very excited about it. We are monitoring it. We are assisting it. We are participating in it, and it is an extraordinary new thing that's happening. Now, for years, we've talked on this broadcast and with our trustees and our wonderful staff and all the folks that support what we're doing at the public square, for which we are very, very grateful, the radio stations, the donors, everybody, about the need in the American medium of talk radio to reconstruct talk radio, to bring a new ethic.
No small assignment, Dave.
No, to bring a new ethic, if you will, or maybe an old ethic back. We're not talking about going back to the days of swap meet, where this is where talk radio began, but we're talking about the ability to take a very effective medium and move it into a new line of thinking.
Well, years ago, when you and I first sat down and I joined you on the public square, you told me this is not talk radio, this is walk radio. I've never forgotten that line, Dave, and that's been in my head all these years.
Well, and years ago when you said yes, and the way that happened was I had a dream in 2007. Now, it's not like I'm some great mystic dreamer. It's just every now and then I have, I had a dream that we were all around a table together doing a daily and a weekend radio program. And it was such, the room was so light, it was so beautiful, it was so joyful. It was such a wonderful experience that when I woke up, all I wanted to do was go back to sleep again. I wanted to, and then I woke up, I thought, well, that was so beautiful. And I sat there in bed and I got out of bed, and at 4:30 in the morning, I wrote you an email.
Yep.
And I said, would you consider, I just had this dream. You were in it. Would you consider
I remember
doing a radio show with us in this fashion? And what amazed me, like within an hour or so, he wrote back and said yes. Then I knew I was in trouble.
That wasn't the first overnight email I got from you, by the way. Or the last.
That's when it started back in 2000. Now, we had been on the air since 1989, but the idea of doing this, sitting together.
Yeah.
So for a long time, we have known and had a beautiful friendship with Michael DelGiorno, who I met based on one of our trustees, Pastor John Bouquet, inviting Michael to come to Ashland and to deliver a prayer breakfast message.
It went over tremendous.
Yeah, it was. Michael just about ran out of town because it was a really powerful and insightful message, and it didn't necessarily go down all that well at the university.
No, it did not.
And so, but John said when we started an office work in Nashville back in 2008, he said, "You got to meet this guy." And so that's how the introduction began. And our first sit down was, by the way, for the record, in reference of historical reality, our first meeting was at a Cracker Barrel.
Oh.
The old logo.
The
old logo.
Yeah.
The unwoke.
The old logo. And I'm sorry, Uncle Herschel, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, when you said we were having DelGiorno today, I was all set for pizza.
Pizza.
I mean, yeah.
And around the world, he's now become known as Pizza Boy.
Yeah,
because the person who comes on his radio program, well, we'll get ahead of ourselves. Let's come back to what happened in the founding of a broadcast that we are incredibly excited about because it's different. In the reconstruction of talk radio, Michael DelGiorno has started a broadcast called Your Morning Show with Michael DelGiorno. And one of the very first realities is this is a radio broadcast that happens Monday through Friday, every day, 6 to 9 in Eastern, 5 to 8 in Central Time, and whatever that is in Mountain Time, coast to coast on now over 103 cities just after 2 years of operation.
It grew so fast, yeah.
And it's not the Michael DelGiorno show. This is one of the few people that has ever entered into the arena of creating a talk radio format and program that doesn't lead with his name, but he leads with the listener.
I love what that connotes. I really do.
Isn't that something, Wayne?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you and I have been at this a long time. We've been at this almost as long as this guy's been living. All right. And it's different.
Yep. Well,
it's different.
The vibe that I get from your morning show is the same as I get with Who's On First, because it just makes you think a little bit. You got kind of that reverse thing going, right?
It is remarkable. It is remarkable. And what what else is fascinating to me is they came up with this idea. Michael, you decided that you would do is to use this talkback button to have a talk radio show. And so you listen to people, callers call in and share their comments. But what you call it, you don't have to rot on hold anymore. You call in, you leave your comment, and then you play the comments and discuss the ideas.
Well,
so it's a conversation.
That's the risk, right? If you make a show all about the listeners and there are none, you're dead. Fortunately, we have them. And then, well, if you make it all about the listeners and they're not very interesting, smart, or entertaining, you're in real trouble. I have the most remarkable audience on the face of the earth. I mean, we have some regulars that have become like characters of the show, but every day in and day out, you know, every election cycle, we forget this. We forget to respect that there's a lot of Americans that get it. There's a lot of really smart Americans out there. And so we took this risk, and it's paid off because really the star of the show is the audience. And it's interesting because the guy who invented the talkback used to be our FM morning host in Nashville. He's now a realtor. He's not even in radio. But what a great invention it is because, you know, I used to always, you know, struggle with callers because you're really handing over the show. It is a reality that nobody tuned in to hear some strange guy on his way to the get and go to get gas. And then you have to do it live. So, you know, you have good callers, bad callers. My experience in Los Angeles was the callers were very good. My experience in Nashville or other markets, maybe not as much. But with the talkback, everybody is, you know, they get 30 seconds to make their comment, ask their question, and we get to hear them first. So nobody really makes it to the air unless they have something to add. But I'm telling you, we edit very few. Yeah. I mean, it's remarkable. I could go live, and God has just given we designed a show to serve His audience, and boy, He's rounded them up in an unbelievable way. It's the absolute. As much as I have David once or twice a week. We have a different contributor every day, and then we have our correspondents that we debrief. But by and large, favorite part of my show is back and forth with my audience.
Well, you build it, they'll come.
I guess that's it.
Wayne, did we actually officially welcome Michael to the public square? And I think it should be in your voice.
Well,
oh yes, I would like the formal welcome because I've never been on before.
Well, you didn't give me a script, Michael. You didn't tell me what to say.
Michael's a loving husband, a wonderful father, a very loyal friend.
Now,
wait, let me get the AI version. Go ahead, Wayne.
Okay, here's Michael DelGiorno on the public square.
There, I like that.
Oh, right. He got it. That was all Chicago, wasn't it? You two share some Chicago roots.
Very much.
Yeah, that's why I like this guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're both Cubs fans.
Both Cubs fans.
Oh, don't get me started.
We're Northsiders, as we would say. Are you Lumonati's, Giordano's? What's your favorite pizza?
I'm kind of a Malnati's guy myself.
I'm a Lumonati guy. Yeah. See?
It's Giordano's.
Yeah, well, It's a tough call. It really is.
That, by the way, was Jeff Sanders, who, along with the rest of the team, is listening carefully to this dialogue among the veterans of the room and as far as radio
Sitting
goes.
here with a puzzled look on their face.
We should get to the meaningful conversation so everybody else will enjoy listening.
So there's this radio show out there now that goes from one station 2 years ago to 103 cities.
How does that happen?
Yeah.
Well, what part of all things are possible? You know, God goes before us, with us after. Nothing I had anything to do with. I had worked in talk radio 35 years, the last 16 in Nashville, for a company who really did not like me.
Us.
I did
a lot of work with Michael on that show, and I will tell you, during the COVID era, we found out that there was an animus across the corporation that was a little difficult.
And then I just, became, I think it's going to be very relevant when we get to C.S. Lewis, somewhat of a martyr, if you will. Some of it was just pure fear. I mean, everybody, it's interesting. I've been speaking at a few churches, and everybody wants to hear the great story of this show and what God's doing and what He's going to do. And I try to keep the focus on what I witnessed Him do in my life. And I would tell you to this day, and if by the next time we visit, it's going to be 250 stations, it's still going to be the greatest was the deliverance of a lifetime of fear. Mm. And so for me, I was always fascinated of all the stories, Jesus in the boat with the apostles. not because he was a grumpy sleeper. But when you think of the miracles he had already done, and we're going to go across the lake, and I'm going to get rest my eyes for a few minutes, it's the way they woke him up and the way they were panicked. They had seen miracles. They should have known he was the Christ. They should have known he was the Messiah, and they should have known that the clouds and the storms would respond to him. I believe had they woken him and said, Rabbi, we're sorry to wake you, but while you were sleeping, the storm's getting a little dangerous. It's getting pretty close to the boat. You might want to calm it and then go back to sleep. I think he would have been delighted. But it was the fact that they had no faith.
That's the question he asked them. Where's your faith?
Where's your faith? And so when this happened, it's not like it just happened out of the blue. This is an ongoing, patient God's work over a course of lifetime in my life. And I think it goes back to childhood things. My mom and dad would often separate, and when they did, we'd move. So I'd be in one classroom in one city. The next thing you know, I'm back in Syracuse, New York, in a different classroom. And this went on all through my life. And so there was this feeling of a rug being pulled. And so even though, looking back, I spent 20 years in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 16 years in Nashville, for talk radio or any radio, that's a miracle.
Yeah.
So this constant dread of waiting, I'm going to get fired any day, having dreams I'm getting fired, we're going to end up being homeless. It finally happened, and that's when God showed up.
It's a great story, Michael, and we're going to take a break and come back. Dave, we used to talk a lot about the fellowship of the broken. That's kind of where we are today in talking with Michael, isn't it?
Once again.
Yep, again.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back on the Public Square. You stay with us.
We will be right back for more on the Public Square. Let's see, there's our tithe, food and clothing budget, taxes, all the insurance, and the car payments. Where's the line in your budget that helps pay the bill for fixing what's wrong in America? Log on today at aproundtable.org and join the growing team that's giving every month to get America back on track. Make your monthly contribution to aproundtable.org. Spreading the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the Public Square.
Very special guest on the Public Square today, our friend Michael DelGiorno, host of Your Morning Show on, would you say 103 cities now, Mike?
Yeah, we just added, oh my gosh, and now I'm going to go
El Paso?
El Paso, Texas was
Wow.
103.
Well, we've been tracking
Buffalo
with you.
was, I think, Poughkeepsie was 100, Buffalo was 99. I can remember the
It's such a great
milestones.
story, it really is. And Dave, you're very often a part of that show, and great friends with this guy, huh?
Yeah, and a privilege to be friends in faith. I will tell you, Wayne, when I first heard Michael and I listened to his broadcast and then began to listen quite a bit back in 2010, I recognized that in the world of talk radio, there were about a dozen players who really truly were at the top of the game, and they really were carrying, if you will, the weight of the medium of talk radio with them. Mm-hmm. And I quickly recognized that God had given Michael talent in the realm to be in that class. This is so people would understand talk radio. There's a lot of people that are on talk radio. Actually, there's not a lot of people that are on talk radio.
Fewer and fewer.
There's fewer and fewer, and there are even fewer who make a living doing it. It's a very difficult market. It's a very difficult world. And I saw this guy as in the God-given talent to have the elite potential of he could have replaced any one of those players there. Yet he was in a very strong market on a very strong station. And I kept thinking to myself, there's something more here. And so I was attracted to see what God was going to do, because it was clear that Michael was on the radio, but he was unafraid to, like, he would do things like say the date like today is June 26th, the year of our Lord, and move on. And I think, wait a second, whoa. Who says that on radio? Who says that anymore? And I would compare his walk with the walk of Rush Limbaugh. Because I would come to find out that Michael knew, maybe I'll get you to tell some Limbaugh stories, because Michael knew Limbaugh when Limbaugh wasn't Limbaugh. And I was mindful of the fact that Limbaugh always kept his audience guessing about his personal walk of faith. It was just a place he didn't go. I don't know if it wasn't comfortable, that he didn't want to get, I don't think Rush was afraid of anything. It just was the way that he chose to deal with it. And then only at the very end, when it was inevitably clear that Rush was departing, did we find out more of what was behind the story. But Michael, without being in any way overzealous or immature or nothing like that, he was leaving clues all along the line that he was interested in God's perspective in all of this.
And I thought, came very naturally, didn't it?
Yeah, and I thought, how long is he going to succeed in secular radio? and there were people who said, well, you'll never get out one station in the Nashville market with that Jesus stuff. But he was unafraid in an unintrusive, not proselyte. He was just being candid.
Right.
I thought, how's this going to work?
Well, Michael, I alluded to the fact that your success is built on some brokenness, and I think we need to tell that part of the story just briefly.
Yeah.
Here.
So, all along I've been carrying that spirit of fear. That's why I start with the disciples. It's easy to read those stories and go, what a bunch of knuckleheads. But at 59 years old, I was that knucklehead. And I bumped into, and I was and David will tell you this, I was very resolved, and I'm going to have to sell my house. I guess I'm going to sell cars with my born-again Christian friend. That's going to be fun. Anything to not be in radio. That's the part that
he was done, Wayne.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just would, and I would consider anything but radio. And
that wasn't your choice, right?
No, I was let go
after
16 years, no severance, no nothing. And I remember having the thought, oh, God's going to move quick. If the enemy comes in like a flood, God's going to raise the standard against him. But beyond that, I had no expectations. Just picture that silly little meme that you see where Jesus has this giant stuffed animal behind him and the little kid won't give up his little tiny stuffed animal. That's kind of what it was like. I didn't ask God for anything other than what I already had. So that one, I was very relieved. David was very concerned. About night 2, the Holy Spirit visited. And it's very distinct difference. When it's the accuser, it's, to pound you down. When it's the Holy Spirit, it's to speak straight to the heart. And he did a work that night. I was very ashamed, looking for a rock to hide under. And I slowly began to heal from that. And day 3. So I've been unemployed 3 days now. The previous company had erased everything. Yeah. So I had no access to any of my past work, which I didn't care. But I was just like, I'm not going to do a demo, so what do I care? But what I didn't realize were my emails were tied up in that. And then when you have your iPhone, I don't know what email is coming to Michael, my personal, my work, and I realized I'd been cut off from everybody I ever knew because they were all using that email. Except for one computer. So I walk by my studio and there's just one email. And it's from a regional president of iHeart. We need to have a cup of coffee. And before we even had our coffee, we began to text. And at that point, the decision was made that, the non-compete would have to be sat out, which was one thing. But then the talks went on. And then we realized, we're going to start in Nashville. And I thought, I really don't want to do radio, but okay. And then just to show you how God weaves all this together, a guy who I was his boss, he was news director, I was program director, is now the right-hand man to the highest up in news talk at iHeart. So all of a sudden I get a call. Not only are you going to start in Nashville, you're going to start in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. And I'm like, well, this is bizarre. And then before we ever got through the non-compete, I think we had Jackson, Mississippi, Tampa, Florida. I think the minute I started smelling God was up to something when we got St. Louis. I mean, that's a pretty big market that we are, I'm proud to say today, beating KMOX in demo, which I would have never thought.
Wow.
If you'd have said, Michael, you're going to go to St. Louis and you're going to beat KMOX, I'd be, well, there's a great God story, and that's just one of 103. And then eventually when we got to, I think it was 35 or 40 markets, we really, frankly, got too big for what the sales department could do. And the next thing you know, I got called in by Rush's old boss, Julie Talbot, and I got signed. Now I'm on Premiere. I do mornings, then Glenn Beck, then Clay and Buck, then Sean Hannity. I just got back from. It's all surreal, but I would look you in the eye and tell you that God delivering me of fear was still his greatest gift.
What a great story.
The notion that we have a God, I should have never blinked, that he's always in control. He goes before, he goes with, he goes after. Everything is within possibility with him. I never even, I think the most I asked him for, God, if there's any way to keep my house.
I remember that.
Until Nick graduates.
Yeah.
That was it. That was all I asked.
So, Wayne, we talked about the fellowship of the broken. I would suggest that around this particular table, there's a lot of people with very seriously broken stories. Yeah. I mean, and those of us that have spent a lot of time on radio, we've all felt it. And I'm not going to disclose all the different characteristics, but I'm sensing, Wayne, you're relating to this story.
Yeah, you better believe it. I really am. You realize how much you had wrapped yourself up, your identity, in what you were doing, and God had to break you from that, break me from that.
Yeah.
So reuse you.
Yeah. And so, and once, and sometimes some of us need to be broken a lot and on a regular basis, present company included. Yet there is a sense that there is a calling to speak to people within the context of this medium. And you were out. I mean, you were gone. All right. And we, some of us came together and said, well, now, okay, you got to vote, but this is a God thing. And so there was a small group of people that were talking a lot and praying a lot, saying, do you all confirm that this guy has been released? And the question wasn't no, it was absolutely no. He's being promoted. The question is, what's going to happen next? Mm-hmm. So that's where your prayer team was.
And my brother Vic, I will tell you, who walked Vic, I can think of two other people, one who's since passed away, Jeff Hartline, and Matt Reddick, a very dear friend, walked with me daily. And I was more like the child me. I remember when I first got saved, everybody was wanting, to aspire in the kingdom. And all I would do was simple prayers. God, I want to know you. Because if I'm going to love you, I'm going to have to know you. And I'm not going to really love you unless I know you. And I'm certainly not going to serve you unless I love and know you. So I was more in that mindset. And I didn't care if I sold cars and lived in an apartment. Now, once things started going in motion, and iHeart is the greatest, and Premiere is, there's the industry part that's boring to people. I died and went to radio heaven. I realized I didn't hate radio. I hated the company I was working for. But this company has given me the ability to literally create this. And so then David and I are sitting down, and now we have iHeart and iHeart podcasting and radio stations. What do we want to craft? And our first notion was, isn't it time talk radio became a conversation again?
Wow.
And stopped being a monologue and beat people up, but literally ask questions and find answers together.
I know C.S. Lewis is going to enter in this conversation in a few minutes, and I'm anxiously awaiting that. But there's one more thing I want to say, and that is that you were cut off, and I'm so glad you had that personal board of directors, so to speak, around you, Michael, because we become toxic to our former life, don't we? We become the outsider suddenly, and I think that's what hurts a lot.
Well, yeah, and then, you got to fight the bitterness, right?
Right.
Especially when something happens to you that you don't deserve. But our first thought should be love. Wait a minute. I got a Father that knows every hair on my head. He goes before me, with me, after me. Nothing takes him by surprise. He doesn't sleep. He's got something great for me. And I didn't. I was just ready to settle for something small. But I would tell you, hands down, I don't care what he does, the way he visited me at night, the way he revealed my sin, the way he revealed, David will tell you this, I would have told you day one, I can't believe they deleted everything. How am I supposed to get a job? By day 3, I was like, I'm so glad they deleted everything. I hope nobody ever hears what a jerk I was compared to what he had made me in an instant. So I still don't, at 103 affiliates, have any earthly thing to tell you as much as encourage people at home that your God is always in control. He's always doing multiple things and way bigger things than you dreamed.
It's a fabulous story, one that applies to all of us, regardless of what we do in life. And Dave, let's make the connection. Where are we headed with C.S. Lewis in this conversation?
Well, when you're going to create something that's new in the reconstruction of talk radio and you want it to be honestly true in connection with the God of the universe, where do you start? That's what we want to talk about.
And we will, coming up on the Public Square. If you joined us after we began the program today, you've got to start at the beginning. You can do that online on YouTube, at our website, thepublicsquare.com, with our smartphone app called The Public Square. Let's pick up again with Michael DelGiorno, our special guest here on the Public Square today, along with Dave Zanotti. And the panel has been sitting aside here listening and is going to join in on this. Jeff Sanders, we mentioned. Melanie Elsie is here. Rob Wolgate, and our producer is Alan C. Duncan. Okay, we've heard just enough of Michael's story to really intrigue us, Dave, but we want to make the connection with all of our listeners here in C.S. Lewis.
Well, and I want to make it very clear that the American Policy Roundtable and the Public Square is a not-for-profit organization that has no connection to iHeart Premier Radio whatsoever.
Right.
And so this conversation is among people who have a shared faith. And hopefully it is as candid as we are comfortable in being with respecting the fact that there are different legal boundaries. And we want to be careful in everything that we say to not say too much or too little. All that being said, all right, or not said, the point is we share a common thought about wanting to communicate with people in a way that is pleasing to their creator and is productive here in love of neighbor.
Yeah.
That's a common ethic that we all share. And we come at this from, Wayne, you've been a part of one of the biggest radio networks in the Christian world. We've been here since 1989. Michael, you've been in radio for over 30 years. We share a common hope and a common ethic.
Absolutely. And we respect how God has called each of us, too. Michael reaches people that I could never reach with my work and experience.
And so God's doing what he's doing, and we hope that we're a part of it. We're not presuming anything. We're only qualified because of his grace and because of his invitation. So the question is, okay, if you're going to talk to people en masse, like we do, how do you not mess it up? Well, one of the first things we decide is that personality is a key part of it. If you don't have the chops, you don't have the chops, and most people who don't have the chops aren't going to get there. Okay, so you have to be called, and you have to be gifted. All right, if you're going to lead something like this. All right, so that's one thing. Secondly, you have to decide whether you're going to be real or whether you're going to be a personality.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I can attest.
Wow, you're drilling right down to the heart of it all, aren't you?
All right, I can attest that everybody in
You
this.
mean being a phony isn't an option?
Well, let's face it. We all know the shtick, and talk radio has been famous for the shtick.
Yeah.
Right. And Michael used to do an impersonation of a guy called Talk Radio Guy.
Talk Radio Man, yeah.
He stopped doing Talk Radio Man because it, frankly, offended too many people who were in the business.
Well, no, I want to tell you, I got called in by the other company. You're doing this talk radio and making fun of the new guy we hired. And I said, I've been doing talk radio. By the way, I've been in radio 43 years, talk radio 36. I said, I've been doing that character over 20 years. How could I possibly be doing? Well, it sounds like him. And I felt like saying, well, that's your problem if it does. But it leads into what we're talking about because David and I actually crafted a 10 Commandments. Just like man, right? To need law in order to live freely in grace. But we did that to keep us on track. And I look at them every morning, though I'm usually the one in an axiom. We would have thought I would be the one that needs the referee. And, the work that God did was so complete. I'm the perfect referee for that. And probably the biggest ones are our voice guy. He'll do things kind of boastfully every now and then. I got to say, nope, can't run that liner.
Right.
But that was just to keep us. And the key, which I think ties into C.S. Lewis, is truly love. When's the last time somebody went on the radio with the notion, I'm here to love and serve these people I can't see waking up. It's not about me. And I think, and then everybody heard it and they couldn't put their finger on it. but there's just something different about this show. And that goes all the way up the chain of some of the biggest names in corporate radio.
Well, let me bring C.S. Lewis into this because his perhaps, I don't even think there is a perhaps about it. I think his most famous, probably best-selling book of all time is Mere Christianity. And I can remember as a young Christian when someone handed me a copy of Mere Christianity, and I read it, and it was way over my head, but I tried to keep up with it. Then I went across the street from where I was working my summer job at the swimming pool, and I went across the street to the public library, and I was walking through, and there in the children's section, I saw these big display books of the Chronicles of Narnia. Now, they were big old, like old school book type things. They weren't the classy, fancy stuff there. And it said C.S. Lewis, and I went, what? That guy I just read who blew me away is in the kids. So I signed one out. I took it back to work. I read it on my lunch break. It's like, what the heck is this? Who is this guy? I had no idea who this guy was.
Wait till you meet his drinking buddies.
From the Eagle and Child, I think that was it, right? So I came into this from left field, like everything else in regards to biblical Christianity. I didn't know what I didn't know. So Lewis actually did Mere Christianity on the radio before it became a book. It was a series of lectures that happened on the BBC during World War II that he was invited to come and speak to the nation as a form of encouragement as how Britain would get through the war. I mean, Britain was being bombed. I think London had been bombed 70 times by the time Lewis had gotten on the radio talking about these things, at least particularly in the sermon that we're going to talk about today called The Weight of Glory. And Lewis came with a different point of view, and he lit up the BBC. For the rest of his life, every year, the BBC would contact him asking him to do either a revision of or an extension of, to come back on the radio and do more lectures. And Lewis refused. He did it one time. And his answer was always the same. Now, you got to know this about C.S. Lewis. He had some really quirky stuff. He did not write on official stationery. When C.S. Lewis would send you back something, he would either write it back on what you sent him, or he would grab the nearest piece of paper, no matter how small, tattered, or and he would write his note and put it in the post. That was it. So you get all kinds of fragments of C.S. Lewis works. He wrote back and simply said to the BBC, "Thank you, but no thank you. I don't repeat myself." There it was. He would not come back on and do it over again because it was for a time and a place and a moment, and it then became the manuscript and then became the book. There is one little piece of one of the messages that has been preserved for posterity that exists from the Mere Christianity. C.S. Lewis was a radio guy. He was brilliant on the radio. And so we thought, well, let's see what we saw as your morning show was coming, in essence, up out of the earth and out of the rock. We said, let's study Mere Christianity to see how Lewis spoke to his colleagues in a time of desperate war. And what we found was an ethic of respect. Now, it's reflected in a speech that he gave in 1941 called The Weight of Glory. And the principle in the last, it's only a 25-page sermon. All right, it took him about 45 minutes to deliver. It takes about an hour to read. And in the very last pages of The Weight of Glory, Lewis makes this statement: there are no ordinary people. And we said, now that's an idea for talk radio. What if we were not talking down at people, but we were walking next to people, acknowledging the fact that nobody's ordinary here. Everyone's extraordinary because everyone is created in the image of God.
I think out of everything that we do, I wanted to incorporate, just for flavor, some of the old stuff that we used to do in radio, like birthdays. And I think that's made the biggest impact. I hear this almost as much as Pizza Boy, which the Trump character has made me. There's just something about the way you say happy birthday and then say, if it's your birthday, I'm so glad you were born.
Wow.
Can you imagine such a simple thing as that? And that just goes back to me. I remember when you ever try to explain to your kids how much you love them and where that leads you? And so it was in those moments I would go, wait a minute, you know why we say happy birthday? What we're saying is life is so much better because you're here. I'm so glad you were born. I'm so honored to be your father. So I just incorporate a little bit of that. It's a throwaway, right?
Yep.
Just at the end, and boom. I think We talk about how we're called to love. People are desperate to be loved.
Dave knows that I have said for years now that radio is a relationship, and that's what you're doing. You're establishing a relationship with the listener by that simple means.
It's amazing how much someone's saying to you every day, good morning.
Oh, in this day and age?
Yeah.
It's deafening.
Yep. Hey, let's take a break. There's more. Believe me, there's more coming up with Michael and Dave and the whole team coming up on The Public Square. You'll find us online at thepublicsquare.com.
God has infinite attention, infinite leisure to spare for each one of us. He doesn't have to take us in the lump. You're as much alone with him as if you were the only thing he'd ever created. When Christ died, he died for you individually, just as much as if you'd been the only man in the world.
We will be right back for more on The Public Square.
We're winning together here today on The Public Square, aren't we? Our special guest is Michael DelGiorno. And sort of our special guest is C.S. Lewis in a way, Dave.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. In The Weight of Glory, a message that he delivered during the time of World War II to the people of England. And it was a sermon that he preached, and it has really become one of the most classic manuscripts of Lewis. And the reason that we're bringing it up today is because as we were looking at how do you reconstruct talk radio in an environment of respect and in an effective tool, Michael, we came across this piece, and particularly how he starts the sermon.
The beginning, to me, is stopped me dead in my tracks, because I would have told you, you've got to die daily. You've got to decrease so he can increase. Get outside yourself.
Stay dead.
Be a holy, living sacrifice. I mean, Ephesians 2 was always my favorite chapter. And I would have thought that I was living it. And what he challenged me with in the first page is me prior to being delivered from fear. That it was really, I'm taking care of my mother. My father-in-law died. I took my mother-in-law, and I'm taking care of her. I got my family, and I'm keeping this job. And even though they're persecuting me, God, I'm going to work every day. And and I'd become a martyr, as opposed to C.S. Lewis flips it. It's not selflessness, the act and sacrifice of selflessness. And then David and I coined a phrase unrelated to this. It wasn't after we read this. It was, not even thinking about this. And I kept saying over and over again, David, you can't fake being dead. You can't fake dead. That was our mantra, really, for the 2 months we were creating what this show was going to be. And that's why I love for my listeners. This isn't me as somebody from radio strategizing what radio should be that it's lost touch with.
Calculating for ratings.
Yes, this is an individual who died to self, who God resurrected in a new, fresh way by his Holy Spirit, achieving something that, oh, by the way, also gives talk radio what it needs to return to.
Let me read a little of Lewis to give you the
this
piece
beginning is really hits you.
First words, if you asked 20 good men today what they thought the highest of the virtues, 19 of them would reply, unselfishness. But if you had asked almost any of the great Christians of old, he would have replied, love. You see what's happened? A negative term has been substituted for a positive, and this is of a more than philosophical importance. The negative idea of unselfishness carries with it the suggestion not primarily of securing good things for others, but of going without them ourselves.
Ow!
Yeah, crunch.
Thank goodness we're not taking a break now to give everybody a couple of minutes to ponder that one.
Yeah, and so the idea of how do you approach people and why?
The whole chapter, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, is where the title is where C.S. Lewis gets his title, The Weight of Glory. And he gets it from 2 Corinthians 4, verse 17. And I'm a nerd and a geek.
You're our nerd.
I am a nerd.
We're going to go to the original Greek or the
that's right.
The context of Paulinian.
He always has the Greek and Hebrew.
I'm a nerd too, Jeff.
That's very good. So I want to
and a new student at Dallas.
Well, I didn't want to bring that up.
Wait,
Wait. They accepted you?
Listen, my last visit was every time there was a pause in a conversation, I'd go, I remember when I lost my job. And then everybody would laugh. Now my new thing is, can I slip in Dallas Theological Seminary in any way?
He started online education at Dallas Theological Seminary. Go ahead.
No, but go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I'm looking at the Greek text here, and I want to kind of retranslate it word for word, which might share a little insight here. Paul says, for the light and momentary affliction, which is not too different from our English translations. For the hyperbole unto the hyperbole. It's the Greek kath huperbolein, eis huperbolein. And huperbolein, we get the word hyperbole, means the overcasting or the overshooting beyond what is necessary or realistic. For our eternal weight of glory, it is excessively working for us. And the more I think about this, God is doing something for us. He's going to show us an overwhelming goodness in the future. He calls it the exceeding of the exceeding weight of glory. And by the way, the word weight, baros, we get the word barometric from that, so a weight. And glory is doxos. Mm-hmm. In Hebrew, it's kavod. Glory in Hebrew means weight or heaviness.
As in value, as if a coin of value.
Not as in burden. So
he's saying he's working for us an eternal heaviness of heaviness, an overwhelmingness he wants to show us. And the only way he's going to do it, he tells us in verse 17, is through the tribulations that we're going through.
They all lead somewhere.
Yes. No suffering is ever wasted. So if anybody's listening to this and you're suffering right now, no suffering is ever wasted if it's put in his hands, if it is put in his hands. And the only way he's going to show you this excessive, overabundance, amazing, heavy, overwhelming goodness at some point in the future is when he's pulling you through this knothole that you're going through right now.
What next? You're going to say?
No.
To live is to die. To be first is to be last.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
not easy.
But
is it?
let me add in this: do we believe this? I hear it. I see it. I see it unfolding in the beauty of the language and the words of the Logos coming literally emanating through this passage of Scripture. Wayne, I'm not at liberty to tell all the details, but I watched you go through a knothole. A career-changing, what could have been a life-ending knothole for some people. They could have just left. And I saw God bring you through.
Yeah, it was all God. Certainly wasn't me. I was being dragged through that knothole, and fortunately, he was on the other side.
Melanie, I can remember a day during COVID when you and your husband, John, were both in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I prayed for you. That was you?
That's right. That's right. And that's just one example of many. His faithfulness. I think you're probably the singular pillar of the question of God's faithfulness.
Yes.
What's amazing to me is that when I was reading The Weight of His Glory, his style, C.S. Lewis's style, was not to take Scripture and explain it. He was to take the explanation and explain it. And it was just, for me, it was like a backward in my head, because he would write something and I'm like, oh, that is, love your neighbor as yourself.
Right,
oh, that is to live as Christ, to die as gain. Oh, and even the verse after what Jeff just described as in 2 Corinthians 4:17, the next verse is what is seen as temporary and what is unseen as eternal. We can't possibly see the eternal yet. Yet when he describes us in this piece, this sermon, as coming to the end of life, and it just all disappears. We are spectators. The only thing that we deal with in our world that has anything of eternal value is people. Mm-hmm. They are the only ones that are immortal. That people will, every single person on the planet has immortality somewhere. everything else doesn't.
Can we read that quote, that particular quote where he talks about that?
Have you got it, Alan?
I got it. Yeah,
Go ahead,
yeah.
read it.
So it says, as what you said earlier, Dave, there are no ordinary people. Then it goes on, you have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilizations, these are mortal, and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit. Immortal horrors or everlasting splendors.
Now, stop for a second and just in your mind, just take in all of Christ. Everything that they couldn't understand, the places he would go, the people he would talk to that they thought was beneath them. I mean, who lived this better than Christ? In a nutshell. And that's the tug of war. What's that? There's this new expression going around online that, and I don't know, it's probably a quote, and I don't know who to give the credit to, but we're not earthly beings having spiritual experiences. We're spirit beings having a temporary earthly experience.
Oh, that's good.
But if we are in Christ, we are dead, buried, resurrected in him. We no longer live. Eternity has already begun. Now, knowing that and knowing the kingdom come and the value of it, how then shall we live? Oh, well, now we're getting into another book.
These are rich lessons for us, and they will continue for most of us on the Public Square coming up. If you have to leave, thepublicsquare.com is a place to go to listen to the rest. This has been such a great conversation on the Public Square today, and it may be one that you want to listen to again or pass on to someone else who you think would benefit from it. I'd urge you to do that. Just use the website. Use our smartphone app. Tell them about the smartphone app, and they can listen there. The Public Square, available free in your app store. Okay, a few more minutes now with Michael DelGiorno and the team here on the Public Square. Dave?
Okay, Michael, now we get to the point of segment 5, and thank you for joining us. It's a very long overdue.
Long-time listener, first time.
Yeah, welcome guest. Yes. Let's go to the So What segment.
Well, for me, looking back, God has done this in my life 5 different times. The writing on the wall of a rug being pulled out, most of the world would say, how would a loving God allow that to happen? A loving God allowed that to happen for what I've become. But the third was the big one, and the charm. And so that begs the question, now what? Well, I don't do anything differently. It's still, I don't do anything but stay dead, know him more, love him more, and then naturally love and serve others. So I don't ever pray for more stations, though if it's God's will, they'll come. And when they do, I want to remain the same person he's remade me. So I think it's in your deepest moments of Christianity, you come back to the first things you learned. And at the end of the day, it's love the Lord thy God with all your heart, soul, and spirit, and love others as yourself, and seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. I mean, I can't get more profound than that. You just look silly doing it. But
So watch this for a second. Wayne, you have a wonderful program that we post and publicize on thepublicsquare.com, and you don't really need that help because First Person is on how many stations?
Something in excess of 550. Yeah.
well,
Okay.
brag, why don't you?
And Michael,
Why does God love Wayne more than he loves me?
And
Well, I only get 25 minutes a week. How many hours a day do you get?
I get 3.
Michael's daily program, Monday through Friday, on Premier and the iHeart stations, is on 103 at the moment. Within a 2-year from starting with 1 to 103. The Public Square is on over 230 stations in its different formats and formulas, and all of us have postings online on YouTube, and your website is, Michael?
Oh, we're going to do a shameless plug?
Yes.
YourMorningShowOnline.com. Or look for us on the iHeartRadio app under Your Morning Show. Back to you, Dave.
Okay. So that if a quick count, 5, 6, 7, 8. So growing to 900 radio stations across the country in this Fellowship of the Broken. and you say to yourself, well, what's next? More. We got to have more. We have to reach more people. You know what? I've never heard that conversation ever
among any of us.
Among any of us in this room.
People
Executive
think
producers,
I'm crazy because I don't look at analytics on my program. I don't. You know, the numbers, they don't move me.
God uses what throughout the entire Bible? He uses a remnant.
Yeah.
He doesn't use armies of millions upon multiplied millions. He uses 12 apostles. He uses a couple of hundred Israelite warriors against the Midianites. He doesn't need more and more. He already is more.
Now, I have to confess that I want more. And here's what I'm convinced the reason, because this is a nonprofit model. Our numbers could quadruple tomorrow and it doesn't change anybody's paycheck. Right? We have zoned out the
That's
potentiality.
why Rob left early.
Yes.
No, I'm kidding. Somebody had to do it.
Right? So there's no, that's not the side of it. I know that following Christ is better. We all know that following Jesus is better, that it would be better for every individual, every home, every family, every mom, every dad, every child, every brother, every sister, every community. Following Jesus is the best way for America to function. As Dr. Allen would say, walking in the way of life. My heart is for more to follow him.
What I think about is how can I love who I have now more? I do think about that. How can this show get better? How can I serve them better? How can I, encourage them better?
So I mean, I can't get past the idea of wanting to see more, but I continually discover that it's never going to be one person, one program, one organization. No. It's going to be God working his stories out, one life at a time. And what a tribute, what a celebration to just be a part of the fellowship of the broken. Yeah. It's like the old saying, how did it go? One beggar telling another beggar where to find a piece of bread?
Yeah.
That's another thing that Lewis talks about in the Weight of Glory sermon is the spirit of competition is not necessarily a spirit that's coming from a healthy place. And we're people who enjoy sports around this table.
Just a little.
Sure. So, but to think about, in Christendom, we don't need to compete for views or for accolades. We need to play our part in the body.
Obey.
But
follow.
But I do get sick of being the pinky toe around here to Wayne's big toe.
You always stub the pinky toe,
But to bring this home to the listeners, it could be, maybe you were unjustly fired, or maybe technology caught up and did your business in, and God's got to completely reinvent. Whatever it is, it didn't just happen. He allowed it to happen. He has a plan. He's got the bigger stuffed animal waiting. Or if you're in your job, don't think about the promotion. Don't think about being the boss someday. Think, how can I love and be there for the guy in the cube next to me? Or when life really throws him something ugly, or he ends up, what do you guys call it? The knot? Yeah, and he needs somebody to remind him, hey, man, there's a guy tugging on the other end of that knot, and you're going to love where you end up in his arms.
I have about 60 friends, all of whom on the same day were told that their jobs were no longer there. Their jobs no longer existed. 60 people in one day. And I was so proud of the way they handled it. Each and every one of them handled it this way. Okay, Lord, what's next? What do you have for me now? What's the lesson for me now?
Well, they're amazing. You should hang out with those guys.
Yeah.
Wayne, can you send them all a copy of this program and tell them we're praying for them?
Right, exactly. And I also have to comment that through the brokenness, some of the deepest friendships I have today are the people on the other side. And in a couple of instances, people that were a part of that brokenness and even responsible for it have become close friends. Something I never could have seen happen.
It's not respective of age. Just this morning, I was praying with a young mom who was in tears. Her youngest, 5 years old, today is his first day of kindergarten. And
You're trying to make me cry now? I'm thinking about my grandkids.
He is overwhelmed. It's too big. It's too big of a change. It's a little boy who has some special characteristics, and it's just, but with that mom, God is there ahead of him. God, and I've said this before, even I think on this program, where one of my favorite verses is in front of the Lord's Prayer. Before he teaches us how to pray, your Heavenly Father knows what you need before you ask. So even for that little tiny 5-year-old, in his heart and mind, God is already there in that classroom with that Christian teacher. It's a Christian school, and he's going to make it through the day, and then he'll know what to expect for the next day. Yeah. God doesn't give us an advanced view of what's beyond that next day. It's just he wants us to walk with him one step at a time. That's why he taught us the Lord's Prayer, not because God needs it, because we need to see how God answers prayers.
Yeah. Well said, Melanie. Thank you so much. We have just a few seconds left. Dave, shall we give the final word to our guest here?
Well, yes. I just want people to know Your Morning Show with Michael DelGiorno. You can go online. You'll find all the different applications on where to find Michael all across the country, and you can listen on the iHeart app. I do, no matter where I'm traveling. If I'm not anywhere near a station that he's on, I'm listening there every morning.
If there's a station in your area, you'll find it on yourmorningshowonline.com. There's a map, and you can see where I'm at. I'm in Ohio right now, where we're in Youngstown, Akron, Marion. But you can listen to the podcast as well anytime. I would just say we don't serve a theory. We don't serve an idea. We serve a living God. He is our resurrection and eternal resurrection, and in every aspect of life. He's big, he's powerful, he's almighty. He can do anything. I saw it. I never even asked for, can you imagine the day I got fired? Give me a position at Premiere. I remember the day I got fired, the only job opening in radio was mine. But he's big.
That's true. I saw it.
Yeah, he's big. He can do anything. The question is, where is your heart? Because he's ready to move.
Great lessons today. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for listening to The Public Square.
The Public Square is a broadcast service of the American Policy Roundtable.